Rachel, I'm pretty sure I did see your submission. So this is your brand sheet, right? This piece? Yeah, and your high performing post. Let me just take this. Okay, so while she's getting that, let me look at your actual question. So you're launching your coaching practice, looking for advice on your social media messaging to pack my calendar with potential one-on-one clients. So your offer is primarily posting on LinkedIn, since that's where your $1 million client is spending most of their time. I've been posting 3 to 4 times a week for a month. I've been getting amazing feedback of I love what you're posting. You're such an inspiration. I need more of you in my life. Okay, so the clients who have worked with me through the beta program know it's magic. With every session, they're 100%. Okay. Discovery recall requests are starting to come in, but I haven't had my first yes yet. My first call, I could tell the price may have been an issue for her. Have my second call scheduled for Thursday the 6th. Oh, so is that this week? Yeah. Okay. And I had another person reach out for my link today. Also, I'm going to do my first webinar. Okay. Okay, so all I want to do is, I know you created the powerful brand sheet, but all I want to do is take what your question is and actually give it to her from a place of just like fresh vibes, of like fresh thread, me and you here in a different like frequency talking about it, just to make sure that she's going to reflect back what you believe is the truth of like your $1 million client. So based on what you created from your brand sheet and then what you've also submitted around what you're looking for support with. Just let everyone in. I just would love to know if this feels like it's landing for you. So the category of one for high achieving women in tech, the gap, why brilliant women in tech aren't landing the yes they deserve. Women in tech are leading groundbreaking innovation, shaping the future and building visionary companies, yet too many are stuck in a cycle of overproving, overworking, under-receiving. Problem isn't a lack of brilliant strategy or credibility. It's an invisible energy leak, subconscious patterns of hesitation, self-doubt, and proving energy that investors, partners, and high-stake decision makers feel before a single word is spoken. The most powerful women in the room aren't the ones saying the most or trying to dominate the conversation. They're the ones who walk in fully certain of their value, holding space so profoundly that the right people rise to meet them. So most coaching in leadership and business development focus on external strategies. So you're right? How do you pitch? Like how to improve your pitch, how to network, how to sell. But high achieving women in tech don't need more tactics. They need the subconscious and energetic reset. So this is where I love this. We've got the detail of what's traditionally taught, whereas what you are doing here, insight and alignment, subconscious reprogramming, vibrational mastery, strategic feminine flow, aligned action. The result, your leadership, wealth, visibility, quantum leap, not through effort, through energy. Does this feel accurate? The kind of yeah. Okay, amazing.
Absolutely. I've done it so many times with her.
It helps though, right? Because it really like distills it down, and I kind of like doing that sometimes. I when I do like sessions with her, I love kind of like refining that again, like reflect back to me why I'm a category of one. Like based on our conversation, what would you say my genius is? So I do love that continuous refinement of that brand summary. I think that's a really powerful one. Okay, so these are her high value micro problems, which, as we know, it tends to be that she's like in the room, she's being praised, decision makers aren't moving, she's speaking, but something isn't quite landing. She's attracting almost opportunities. Does this feel relevant and on point? Okay, great. And then these pieces feel relevant and on point.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
I love how she even formats things differently every time. It's just seeing it a new way. There's always something different.
But isn't that so good? Because I feel like even for me, it's like I don't want just the same thing reflected back to me over and over again, because you get category of one blindness, you get like offer blindness. We're looking at our stuff all the time. So I do kind of love that fresh format, fresh review, and like even just tweaking that. That I didn't just ask her the question, I actually gave her the context that you gave me first of your question, and then also asked her for the detailed brand summary. So I think that's kind of cool. So Audience is already engaged, inspired, and resonate with your message. Next up is to refine your LinkedIn messaging to activate decision-making energy. Yes. Would you like me to create a LinkedIn post where it goes? Okay, which one would you pick of those three that comes up for you first?
Um, Framework, call to action strategy. Probably a call to action strategy since people are starting to message me and yeah, and wanting to get on calls. I feel like I have a like amazing, 2-week strategy for posting on LinkedIn, and I can put it in and tweak it and do it in minutes. And it really has helped me come out and say exactly what I need to say and just start showing up online.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things for you, obviously, without actually looking at your content itself, I haven't reviewed what you've been posting. Bearing in mind you're $1 million client and the work that you do, is you making your work feel as tangible to her as possible so that she can really, it's like she needs to land in her body and in her mind that this is as strategic as learning a sales pitch strategy. You know,
Mhm.
it's like that feeling of like tangibility around the work so that it feels like she's going to get the result that she wants. Okay, so yeah, and I kind of love that, right? Micro costs that they don't even realize they're paying. How much money have already slipped through their fingers because they haven't embodied their power? How many deals have almost happened but didn't close because of the subtle energy leaks? How much energy are they wasting in over efforting, over proving, over preparing? If they keep operating from the same subconscious patterns, what will their next 3 to 6 months look like? If they don't shift now, how many more sleepless nights, investor rejections, or high stakes meetings that they don't land will they experience? So okay, CTA example. Every time you say I'll do this later, you're unconsciously choosing 6 more months of almost moments, almost getting the deal, almost landing the investor, almost feeling at peace. The biggest mistake high achieving women make in tech mate, thinking they need more time. The truth, the faster you shift your internal world, the faster your external world changes. So again, without looking at your content, even I feel like this could be a short form piece of content for you on LinkedIn, which would be a hook of this. I really like this as a hook. So the biggest mistake high achieving women in tech make, they think they need more time. So tell me about that. Do they think they need more time to do more pitches? What is it? Does this feel true? Would be their biggest objection. Why can't I
Absolutely,
just
absolutely. It's everybody focuses on making the connections and getting out there and getting their pitch memorized and seeming confident in their project. They love their project, but they aren't doing the foundational vibrational work first to actually know that they are the ones asking for the money. So they have to be okay that their self-value is worth $2 million or $200 million or whatever it is that they're asking for. So that's it seems across the board, that's what the hangup is the internal struggle of self-value and worth and their own internal beliefs around money, which is also power and but it affects everything.
should say external results?
And they're even listening to men, which is in my post, listening to men advisors saying, well, you need a male to go with you in the pitch so you have a male energy because you seem too giddy and whatever. And I'm just like, no, you actually don't. And they say, oh, you need to be bitchy in your presentations. I'm like, no, you need to rise above all of this and completely change your vibration. So they have to come up and meet you. You don't go down to their level and be bitchy. But
That's
it's
so
shifting
crazy.
everything.
I remember once in corporate, when I was in a director role and I was doing a pitch, to the MDs, they were like, "Can you just like bleach out your personality a little bit? Like, can you just like bleach yourself down a little?" And I was like, "The only thing I bleach is my hair, but thank you for your feedback." Um, okay, so let me just see what she wrote here. Position your offer. People need to see your offer as the only solution that guarantees the transformation they crave. This is making do. Okay, so Yeah, so I like even these like CTA examples that she's talking about. I kind of like these is even like standalone posts because I like the idea of like long form, short form, mixing it up on all of the platforms. But even taking this, the biggest mistake high achieving making, and then I would say here the feedback I would give is like let's use you statements, not they, she. So here we'd have like the most basic high achieving women in tech mate. You think you need more time, more connections, more pitch practice, more proving. The truth, if your internal self worth doesn't shift in full alignment with your pitch, leadership and vision, nothing in your external results will change. Funding doesn't follow effort. I like that. Oof, that's a good hook.
Yeah.
That's a good hook. The faster you shift your internal world, the faster is. Okay, so the biggest mistake you're making. Yeah, thinking you need more time. So she updated that. So I like this. Okay, I just want to look at something else up here. Because I even think there you could do like you could do something around like you can keep trying to figure it out on your own. You can keep learning another sales pitch strategy or taking another guy with you to your pitch, thinking that it's going to make it seem somewhat more relatable to the dudes that are in the room. Or you can actually learn to shift at the subconscious level and start attracting the investors' opportunities and high caliber deals effortlessly. So I would even like edit that to like put some of those pieces in there. So I like this as a hook. Now, the thing that I want to do for you is look at so when we are talking about your work of like shifting at the subconscious level and we're talking to your $1 million client, I think something that we can think about is how do we position the work?
Oh, that's good. Because I'm always trying to think of how do I say subconscious beliefs when they don't even realize that they have them until our first conversation and I point them out. So that's not her wording. She wouldn't say
Uh-huh.
that.
Exactly. And so even without even looking at any of your stuff, I can guarantee that a little part of the disconnect in terms of needing it now energy, the hesitation, the investment is and I know this because I'm an ex-corporate woman too, right? I may not have been in the tech world, but when I was in the corporate world, if you would have said subconscious reprogramming or shift your internal world, I would have been like, huh? What? So what we have to do is make sure that it feels as tangible to her as a like sales pitch strategy, as a other like strategy that she would be looking at learning. Um, oops. So what I want all of you to do when you're thinking about this is why these are so powerful, is because I want all of you to be thinking about, okay, my $1 million client, kind of like we're doing here with Rachel, like what would her objections be? What part of my work would she not necessarily understand or even know is a problem? What are the things that I do inside my world that like people wouldn't know coming in? They would, but when we come in and they do it, they're like, oh my God, it was that. They think it's, so this is a very problem aware, solution aware style of messaging, where we really want to make sure that we're making her very problem aware in your content and therefore very solution aware, whilst also dissolving her objections. So in Rachel's example, her objections would likely be that if she's a woman in tech, she might not know what subconscious reprogramming and internal shifting. It might not feel tangible enough for her to really feel concrete enough that this is the thing that I need to anchor into that's going to get me the result. So we have to create messaging that is going to dissolve those objections. So for all of you, even making a list of what the conscious and subconscious objections of your $1 million client is going to be, and making sure that you're bringing them into your messaging without having to directly address them, but actually really intelligently dissolving them. So that's why the you don't have a this issue, you have a this issue, and then showing them, making them aware of that. So for example, you could even use you don't have a pitch issue, you have a what was the first thing that you said around internal? So you said something about like internal self-worth, but I don't know what the exact phrasing is that you used. What did you say?
Um,
That's okay.
Probably like a self-value. And
And you can even say that, right? You have and I would even say a value issue, because they might think you mean a value of like positioning the value of their pitch.
right, which
Wrong.
would also create
Internal.
curiosity.
Yeah. So I would even there notice how even with that, when
Mhm.
you want to get the lean in, so we don't always want to be like, you have a subconscious reprogramming issue, because they might even scroll past that. So what we want to do is like, even things like this, why your pitch isn't landing and what no one else is telling you. Like no one else will tell you this, or even I would be like, the bros won't tell you this, so I will type of vibe, right? The no male CEO is going to tell you this, so I will. You have the strategy. You've refined the pitch. You've connected with the right people, and yet the big yes still, or the number of yeses still aren't happening. Because again, you want to make sure you're talking to people that are getting momentum, not none. So, but the level of yeses still aren't happening. If strategy alone was the answer, you'd already have the funding, the leadership role, or the high caliber partnerships that you've been working toward. But here's the truth: funding doesn't follow effort, it follows certainty. If investors, decision makers, or partners aren't moving towards you, it's not because your strategy off, it's because your energy is sending mixed signals. You're saying all the right words, but they don't fully land. You're in the right room, but nothing is clicking. You believe in the vision, but something just feels slightly off. That off feeling, that's what investors, partners, and decision makers are actually picking up on. Now, I like this. Something that you could even do to go even more micro is to think about creating a micro specific piece of content around things like how would their energy not being in alignment actually show up in the pitch in terms of a lack of certainty, or that lack of congruence around self-value and the value of the pitch itself? Like, what types of language would they be using, or tonality, or any little micro things that would give them away, so to speak, in terms of creating a lack of certainty and a lack of trust?
What are they actually saying? I
Mhm.
think that it's whenever it's time to ask for the money, it's just, they're probably their body language, what they're saying, they're just not being 100% certain. And whenever they're having going to these conferences worldwide, connecting with people all over the world, going through ideal person, ideal investor after investor after investor, and just not even wanting to be in the bro room to begin with. It's just like they don't even want to be there. They want the people to come to them, and they don't want to be there, but yet they're spending tens of thousands of dollars of their own money to go to these blockchain crypto conferences to meet potential investors, because that's what you have to do. Well, that's what they think that they need to do.
So what we even want them to do is, so here's a good example for you all around where we're getting her. Sorry, I've still got this like residual cough from a respiratory infection, and it is the most annoying thing in the world. But I want to talk, and my body wants to do is cough. Okay, so what we're doing here is more of and I want to extract the message for all of you here, right? Because we're probably not going to have time to cover every single person's content today. And I want to make sure that everyone is learning from the examples that we're doing. The problem awareness, we can create a greater and overarching problem awareness around for example, I would say you don't have a visibility issue, you have a messaging issue. And then I'm going to share, and in the same way Rachel has here, share the overarching issue of certainty, of you're saying the right things but they're not landing, of the sales and pitching isn't the issue, it's actually it's the energy you're holding. But what you also want to do is go more micro than that, so that she really finds herself of, hi, I'm the problem. Like, oh, I see how that is my actual problem. So what I mean by this is, let's create a post around when it's so when it's time to start talking about pricing, or the like the pitch part, right? The actual pitching, there energy shifts. It's as subtle as, and then I'm like, think of an analogy, relevant analogy. And then I really wish I could spell. Messaging genius that needs autocorrect at all times. Okay, so then we're gonna say, like, how would she notice that? It's like you feel it, because it's like, here, I actually would put it down here actually. And yeah, it's the difference between landing the deal or losing it. Then you're gonna be like, we both know you feel it. Now, when I think about her, it's like those subtle signs in her body, like
Right.
she feels like her heart starts to race slightly, like her palms get slightly sweaty right before that moment where she flicks to the next slide, or where she knows she's going to have to start the actual pitch talking about money component. There are physical cues that she will find herself in, where her voice goes from like loud and projecting, and suddenly you find yourself twitching with your hair, or like there is certain physical cues that signal the shift in energy, like her hands get slightly what's the word, like sticky, you know, it's like damp, like that feeling of like slightly sweaty. um Messes with her hair, her voice, clammy, thank you, I was like, what's the word I'm looking for? Clammy. Calmy, definitely not calmy, clammy, messes with her hair. Her voice goes from that like projection, and even the speed, slow intentional speed, because that's how she's learned to do it, to slightly faster and quieter, you know. And it's like, again, it's those subtle cues. And then this,
And talking too much. Oh, I love that. Your internal value thermostat. Yes. Well, I love how you bring it into like a physical response too. It's like, then they're like, oh yeah, I have had that.
and that's the thing. So what I want all of you to share here, is to notice here, is what we're doing is a couple key things. So we're going really micro in her experiences. Again, I want all of you to ask yourself, especially where you teach more of the energetics, or something that doesn't quote unquote feel as strategic. Like Leanne, it's easy for you because you're teaching business strategy, right? You'll tell yourself stories about why it's easier for someone that's teaching X, but it's harder for you because you're teaching Y. The reality is, what all of us have to do is make our $1 million client problem aware from a macro level perspective, like we were talking about, where I talk about, you don't have a visibility issue, you have a messaging issue, you don't have a pitch issue, you have a value issue, and then we go into internal value. We also then have to get her to find herself. Like, we want her to read a post and be like, holy shit, it's like you're in my head. It's like you've watched me pitch, like you're in my body and you've watched me pitch. So we want to go really micro so that she finds herself. The second thing that we want to do is exactly this. So I took something that you said of like internal value, which like I got immediately and was like, I love that phrasing. But when we immediately position the word thermostat with it, do you see how now she has a physical thing that like it's almost like a visual physical thing that she can attach to the concept? And now she's able to actually, now it feels tangible, because now she's visualizing a thermostat. It's something that she has seen, that she knows exists. So
Mhm.
for any of you that have a more I love how excited this like conversation makes me. Any of you that have a more internal world, things that don't feel as tangible, that's how you make intangible tangible. So if you can see what I'm doing there, it's so subtle and it makes such a big difference. So the subtle shift that's costing you the deal, it's as subtle as the slight hesitation before you say the number, as small as your voice speeding up when you talk about pricing, as unconscious as your hands smoothing your hair, your breath becoming just a little bit more shallow. And yet, it's the difference between landing the deal or losing it. You feel it, they feel it. Your energy shifts the moment pricing comes up. Your voice, which was slow and intentional, suddenly speeds up. Your body, which was grounded and open, suddenly contracts. Like, even think about what she does with her hand. She goes from presenting with her hand, her body language open, to suddenly she's probably like closed. Like, she stops moving her hands as much. She kind of like starts not knowing, she almost like doesn't know what to do with her hands. Like, what do I do with my hands? Right? She gets awkward. You find yourself saying more than you need to, over explaining, justifying, filling the space. This isn't just nerves. Because what would she tell herself it was? She would say, well, it's just nerves. Like, everyone gets nervous when you have to talk about pitching and pricing. This is your internal value thermostat showing you that you're not fully aligned with the numbers that you're about to say. And that tiny misalignment, that's what investors, partners, and decision makers are actually picking up on. People don't say yes because of what you charge. They say yes because of how you hold it. Oh, even that is such a good post by itself.
Yes.
Oh, it's so good. But do you see how when you start to dig into those micro pieces, suddenly you're able to actually start pulling out things and being like, okay, let's make this into a post. And that can even just be a standout, like real one-liner type of thing for you too. But this type of content where she's going to feel really seen, and then you could couple it with some of the suggestions higher up around the CTAs of like, you can keep pitching, you can keep pitching with your current internal value thermostat
Mm.
and getting the same answers, the maybes or the we'll think about it. Or you can hire me and increase your value thermostat so that all you hear is yes. There is no other word that comes out of anyone's mouth.
Mhm.
And
I
you
love, I
see
mean,
how
I'm
it's
going to be
like,
thinking about that all the time. Like, how can I make, because this energetic work is so like nebulous. And then people are like, well, where's the ROI? The ROI is you're wasting your time. Like it said, but I love that the C in the CTA, but I'm going to be thinking about this, how to make the intangible tangible in
mhm.
like everything, every post that I
But
do.
it just
Brilliant.
helps, right? It really helps. And even for me with messaging, there's so much intangibility around like what I teach within it, that we always have to make sure that we're bringing that. How can you make it feel more of a physical thing? How can we bring it into the now? What you want is that person that's listening to you to be able to understand what you're talking about. Like, if I go essential oil, you visualize an essential oil. If I say bottle of water, you visualize a bottle of water. And what we have to do is find language that creates that grounded experience around topics that feel more not as like, I don't want to say grounded, that's the wrong word. You used a better articulation just now, or the word that you picked. What did you say? You said like what did you say? Did you?
Nebulous.
Yeah. So it's like you take something that doesn't feel as like tangible to someone and you make it suddenly feel very like, oh yeah, I understand that. I get that.
Mhm.
And that's what we have to do with all of those micro things. So for you, it's like, and for all of you, it's like taking that approach of like, okay, what is in the micro, and getting dug into the micro so that you can really start to show her and have her find herself, coupled with how do we make buying a lower risk than buying? How do we make not buying a higher risk than buying? What are the things that are going to happen if she continues to do what she's doing versus what she does when she hires me?
Mhm.
Love this.
I
So
mean, you talk about micro so often, and this just brings a whole nother level of how micro you actually need to
yeah,
go,
yeah.
like
It's
in
so
their
cool.
body, micro.
Yeah, and that's what I do. So whenever any of you tell me about your $1 million client and your work, so you, and this is the cool thing because you kind of get to see it here. What I do with any of you is I go to that person. So I go to Rachel's ideal client, her $1 million client, and I tap into them and like, what are they experiencing? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? Like, marketing and messaging is a psychological thing. And the way that you're able to create a psychological response in someone, an emotional response, instant emotional demand, is when you really understand. And I almost think about it when I was younger, I used to do acting. And so you get into the role, right? Where you're like, if I'm in the role, what is happening? If I was playing them, and you guys should know them intimately, I'm having to like tap in and out of all these different people. But we go into that experience and we're like, okay, well, what happens physically when she does that? So you'll tell me, dig deeper. I always tell all of you, but go a layer deeper, keep going a layer deeper. When you say like, oh, well, her energy shifts at the end of her pitch, it's like, how? Why? In what ways? It's like go deeper, 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 go micro, 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 because that's where you'll find those micro specificities that she'll actually resonate with. She might not find herself in your energy changes, but she will find herself in the micro specificity of how you show her it changes.
Right, right. I love it. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to
Me
review
too.
this and just use it in a whole new way. So thank you
And
so much.
now what's cool is you've got that thread, so continue now in that thread with her for a bit. And now we've given you that like start, and then really go into some more detail around this and play around with some of the different examples that you would use too.
Yes.
Such
Oh,
a
thank
good
you so much.
example. Yay! I love this. Okay.